How does a village that's celebrated for its harmony, a place literally held up as a role model for peace, just suddenly erupt into flames? It's a tough question, and today we're going to dig into a report that investigates exactly that, trying to understand the anatomy of a broken peace in a village called Litan Sareikhong. So, to really get a sense of what was lost here, you have to go back to 2010. A government official at the time actually called this village a role model for the state. And look at that quote, perfect harmony. That wasn't just a casual observation, this was its reputation, a genuine beacon of stability in the region. But then, just over 15 years later, that perfect harmony was completely shattered. The model village became a scene of absolute devastation. And this is what that collapse looked like in reality. We're talking more than 50 homes set on fire. I mean, just think about it. All those decades of community building, of neighborly trust, just gone up in smoke. Okay, so here is the real head-scratcher. You have a place that is famous for its peace, and the conflict itself, according to the report, was kicked off by something as small as a drunken brawl, and yet it explodes into systematic arson. How? I mean, what were the hidden cracks under the surface that allowed a tiny tremor to become a massive earthquake? That's what we're going to explore. To figure out how this piece broke, we first have to understand what it was even made of. And let me tell you, this was no accident. This was a piece that was deliberately and very carefully built over decades, creating what the residents themselves called an unshakable bond. And what's really fascinating is just how proactive this village was. I mean, during the brutal Kuki-Naga ethnic conflict of the 1990s, Litan Sareikhong became this island of stability, a safe haven. They set up their own local peace committee to handle any tensions. For years, the Kuki and Tankal communities literally prayed together in the same church. This wasn't just passive tolerance. This was active, structured cooperation. Now, to get to the real heart of the matter, we have to rewind the clock all the way back to 1973. There was this historical wound, a land dispute, and the village leaders at the time came up with this really sophisticated, out-of-court solution meant to heal it for good. It was called the 1973 Conciliatory Accord. And this wasn't just some piece of paper, okay? Every single step was packed with meaning. First, there's a financial payment of 20,000 rupees. Then, a butchered buffalo for a huge communal feast. That's an act of making peace, of propitiation. And finally, the other village provided the rice for the meal, which is an act of reciprocity. It was this whole sophisticated system designed to be the final word. But here's the absolute crux of the problem. For the people of Litan Sareikhong, that accord was a voluntary investment in their future. It was about securing peace so they could thrive. The report, though, shows that the neighboring village, Sikibong, eventually came to see it very differently, as an unfulfilled deal, an admission of weakness. You have the exact same event, but two dangerously different realities. The report calls this a bifurcation of legitimacy. Now, for almost 50 years, this fragile peace, built on these two totally different interpretations, somehow managed to hold. So, what changed? What provided the spark to reignite a wound that was half a century old? Well, as it so often is, the answer was the prospect of money. The report actually coins a really important term for this phenomenon: compensatory conjunctures. I know, it sounds a little academic, but the idea is actually super simple. It's that moment when the government announces it's going to pay out a bunch of money for land to build new highways or bridges. All of a sudden, that creates a huge financial reason to bring up old land disputes. That dormant historical wound from 1973 suddenly had a very modern and very large price tag attached to it. And when you lay it out on a timeline like this, the speed of the collapse is just staggering. Look at this. 1947, they're officially recognized. 73, they sign this major peace accord. Through the 90s, they're a model of stability. Now, jump all the way forward. In 2024, a modern court legally validates that old 1973 agreement. It should have been settled for good. And yet, just 2 years later, a small brawl turns into an absolute firestorm. And this is where the story gets really, really baffling. Because get this, before the violence exploded, the dispute was actually taken to the modern legal system. And that system delivered a final, totally definitive verdict that should have ended the argument once and for all. In October 2024, a civil judge issued a ruling. Finding number 1, boom! The original court case from back in the 1970s was officially closed way back in 1973. Why? Because the deal was reported as fully satisfied. As far as the court was concerned, the deal was done. Okay, so what about the new claims that there was still money owed? Well, that was finding number 2. The court found that these recent claims had absolutely no formal documentation. 0. There was simply no legal proof to back them up. And that brings us to the court's final, unambiguous conclusion. The new petition to reopen the case was, and I'm quoting here, prima facie barred by the law of limitation. In plain English, the legal window to make this claim had closed decades ago. You can't just reopen it. Case closed. So, you have a 50-year-old customary peace accord that wasn't enough, and you have a modern court ruling that wasn't enough. So why did the violence still happen? Well, this brings us to the report's final and pretty sobering analysis. According to the report, here's the chain of events it lays out. It all starts with that minor drunken skirmish, but that spark landed on some very dry tinder. It blows up from a simple brawl to systematic arson over 3 days. The report then identifies leadership from the neighboring village Sikabung, specifically a man named Wungreikhan Kasar, as being the one who reactivated these old claims. And the motivation for this, the report concludes, was that potential for a big financial payday from the infrastructure compensation. The key takeaway from the report's analysis is this: the violence represents a deliberate choice to ignore both the 1973 peace deal and the definitive 2024 court ruling. And that leaves us with a final and pretty unsettling question. You know, the story of Litan Sareikhong is about a community that built peace, signed accords, and even got a final verdict from a court of law. But none of it was enough to stop the flames. And that really forces us to ask, when a court of law isn't the final word, what is?